Please welcome Jamie Farr and Loretta Swit! I feel like we've got some fans of the 4077, am I right? Give it up for Loretta Swit and Jamie Farr, everybody! Boy, oh boy, we have got a crowd in here today. Anybody seen all episodes of MASH? I had a feeling. How's that couch? Is it comfy? Is it good?
Yes.
Yeah? What's that?
We want you to know we love you and we couldn't have done it without you.
Jamie, what's it like to see the excitement like this for MASH nearly 50 years later?
You know, what it is that we work in a sound stage, on a sound stage, it's stage 9 there, and it's like a big warehouse. And we go to work, there's a camera in the sets, and then we're in our costumes, and you don't know what it's like once you've done it, because we don't go out into the public. And then when you go out into the public, we go, what the heck are they getting so excited about, you know? We forget it goes all over the world and we become famous. In California, though, they ignore us. Especially if you live in Calabasas. Everybody wants to know if you know the Kardashians.
Here's the thing, in California, you could be going into a delicatessen and Paul Newman is sitting at the counter. So, of course, we're nothing, you know. But it's true, when you go out and meet your friends, your family this way, it's overwhelming.
Well, I think we all have those moments where, I know for me, I remember watching the local news at night, and then the reruns of MASH would come on right after that. And so that was my nightly routine, watching MASH every night. Corporal Klinger, Hot Lips, and everybody else with the 4077. It's an honor.
Major Houlihan.
Oh, Mike, excuse me.
For all the women in the audience, I had to make that correction, right?
And I want you to know something. I'm now a Walt Disney princess.
Official royalty in both regards, right there. How's Utah treating the both of you so far?
What?
How is Utah treating the both of you so far?
I still didn't get it. What? Slow down, enunciate, say it again.
My lips aren't as hot as yours. How is Utah treating the both of you so far?
Oh my, you guys are so great. Honestly, we get gifts all the time and hugs and kisses, and yeah, this is, I've been here before doing theater. You're a great theater place. Oh, you're such a great audience.
Years ago, 1962, I was doing a movie called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And we were 9 months in Moab and Wawee, Utah. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with that.
My favorite nickname for Jamie from the show is he is my Arabian aardvark. I love that. I love that. And it is thanks to Jamie in an episode called Birthday Girls that I won an Emmy because he was so wonderful and so easy to work with. And of course, my mom loved Jamie. And she was not an interview, but there were people listening. And she said, well, Jamie is my absolute favorite on the show. And her daughter is sitting there, right? And so I thought, you know, I don't want her to embarrass herself. I said, Mom, no, you mean like next to your daughter, he's your favorite. No, she said, he's my favorite.
Her mother, Nell, lives to be, and I'm going to get this right this time, 106 years old.
Yes.
And she was in the motion picture home, and it's not too far from where I live. And I never tell Loretta when I was going over, I used to visit her mom there.
Yeah, I had to find out from my mother, oh, Jamie stopped by to see me today. they were having this thing.
One day I went up to her and I said, Nell, is there anything you need? And she said, you know, Jamie, at my age, you couldn't possibly get what I need. I said, how about vanilla ice cream? She said, okay.
We spent Christmas and New Year's with Jamie and Joy for years. My mother would, I mean, I wouldn't be able to live with her if we didn't go there for Christmas and New Year's there. But she called his house the Castle, because it goes up a road, a steep kind of incline getting to where you would park and go into the house. And she was tiny to begin with, so she was always looking up at Jamie's castle, you know. People don't know this about Jamie Farr, and they picture him in all those wild clothes and, you know, the dresses that he wore so well. But he happens to be a great dresser, a GQ dresser. One day I was visiting, he opens the door, he's wearing a smoking jacket. Are you ready for this? And you know, those fancy little slippers, and nobody knows that about him. Behind the Cleopatra outfits, this guy is a great dresser.
May I tell you a very fast story? A lot of people say, you know, what was your favorite dress on the show, or so on and so forth. Well, of course, the people that picked them out, they show you the bad taste they were. One of them was a talent scout for the LA Dodgers. So you can imagine, you know, when he goes into the wardrobe department, we've got Alice Faye, Betty Grable dresses, all kinds of dresses to pick out. Well, they picked one out that Ginger Rogers had worn in one of her movies there, dancing movie. And we did a takeoff on Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, and had this gold lame dress on, and Nurse Kelly Nakahara was supposed to be Fred Astaire, and we did Dancing Cheek to Cheek. Well, the show aired, and everybody was laughing at it, and the next day I was in the commissary at 20th Century Fox, and who's there? But Ginger Rogers. She's doing a guest spot on Love Boat. And she comes over to me, she says, Jamie, I saw that show last night. She says, I want to let you know that that dress looked a heck of a lot better on you than it did on me.
We always said Jamie had the legs for it. He had just great pair of legs.
I had both legs, and the Red Skelton used to say when he ran, he looked like an egg beater. Let me tell you something about this lady now. I gotta tell you, you know, you do a lot of shows like Charlie's Angels and a lot of shows with a lot of the female stars on that. Well, dear Major Houlihan was the only lady, obviously, the star of the show called MASH. And I gotta tell you, you know, you go on some of the sets and the ladies are always primping and they got all my makeup and my eyes, and I used to go, is my nose still on, you know? This lady, when they said, we're ready for camera, she was almost the first one there. You never waited for Loretta. She is one heck of a person, and I gotta tell you that right now. She thinks she's a tough lady. She always tells you, you know, I'm tough, I'm tough. Let me tell you something, if she likes you, she'd give you the shirt off of her back. That's how wonderful this lady is, I'm telling you right now.
That's very, very kind. The ensemble, the group through the years, you know, Jamie and Alan and I were from top to bottom, from beginning to end. And Jamie came in as a day player at the end of the first season. Day player is, you know, you've got a role, it's a role, but you do it in one day. That's your...
And I got $250
and and a can of tuna fish. And he was, of course, so irresistible, and he did it so beautifully. They signed him on the very next season. He was a regular. And then two seasons after that, he had a card right at the top of the show with us. And so we go way back to the beginning, and we have this, I guess, tapestry of memories and body blows. We lost people we loved so much, like McLean and Wayne and David and Harry, and and what happens is it brings you even closer, doesn't it? Your losses and you go on. But the fabulous thing about what the production office did, they never tried to replace those irreplaceable people. Instead, they gave us this kind of new note for the orchestra that was already playing, like David, who came in with his Boston accent and bringing this pressure. And what happened was everybody had to keep growing and adjusting to these new people, and we were playing new and different tunes all the time. So it was, for an actor, it was glorious to keep, we had this opportunity to keep growing and emerging better and better all the time, right, Jamie?
Oh, yeah.
It was just such a challenge to keep with it.
Can I tell you how I got the part on the show?
Yes, please.
It wasn't the casting
history.
couch.
This is the rest is history.
I had been in the business for a long time, and I did an episode. Remember a show called F Troop? I did a stand-up comic Indian on that. They gave me all the Milton Berle's jokes and Henny Youngman's jokes. I was auditioning for the Hakawi tribe, and I had all the terrible jokes, Instead of take my wife, please, take my squaw, please. So at the end of the audition, the Hakawi chief comes over to me, and we have a saying in show business, if they don't particularly like you, don't call us, we'll call you. The chief says, don't smoke signal us, we'll smoke signal you. Gene Reynolds was the director, and he saw me. Gene later became the executive, the producer of MASH. So he used to write a name in there if he liked you in that. So I get a call. I didn't see the show, I hadn't seen the movie, I didn't know anything about the series at all. And the agent says Gene Reynolds is called, and they got a part in a new TV series at 20th Century Fox called MASH. And I said, oh, great. He says, yeah, $250 for the day. I said, are you kidding? Great, I'll pay for the groceries, the rent, and everything else. He says, I said, what kind of part is it? He says, they'll tell you when you get there. So I show up. He takes me to stage 9, and there's a little trailer out there where you're supposed to get dressed. And I go in there, and there's this woman's Army Corps uniform with these huge high heels. There, and I go, what am I doing, dressing with an actress? He says, no, they're yours, put them on. What the heck kind of part is this? I hadn't even seen the dialogue, So I put them on, they all fit. The shoes were called El Grande, so I'll give you some, idea of my foot. So I put him on, and he starts laughing. He takes me out on the soundstage, Loretta, Alan, and everything. They start laughing, the hairy bowed legs and that. I said, what's the dialogue here? What am I supposed to say in it? I had 6 lines in the show, and I was so happy that I got to be on it. And as Loretta said, I was so lucky because they called me back, 6 times that year. And incidentally, MASH was going to get canceled the first year. Did you know that? Did anybody know that?
I knew that.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Yeah, it was like after the 2nd season. Is that right?
What?
They got canceled here briefly for like a hot second.
No, but I think just came close.
Supposed to be canceled.
But we were never canceled, no. But what a history, especially this is such a story, such a true Hollywood story where a star is born,
That it is. I know that our time is short here today. We don't have a whole lot of time to be able to meet everybody and hear all their questions, but I would like to be able to allow some of you to ask some of your questions. So if you have a question, I know we've got the line forming here, and the microphone, whatnot. Go ahead and ask Loretta or Jamie your question.
Yes, so your show covers a lot of really deep themes. Many of them were very controversial at the time. It covers life and death, theology, bigotry, obviously pioneering LGBTQ issues. Did any of those influence your personal beliefs at that time?
I think they were all in a line with our personal beliefs. That was what was extraordinary. This group coming together at that particular time all felt strongly about the issues that were. We also had a lot of input. They did consult us. We had input. Jamie and I, or Alan or Mike, we would have suggestions, or we would recommend something, and so we were already in it. And I think, if anything, our beliefs were maybe strengthened. But I think we went in there with those values.
Yeah, I think also one of these, our show is so different than a lot of shows because usually they don't let the actors participate. They think that's, the patient's taking over the asylum. So what happened is we'd read the script, and then they'd say, do you have any questions on page 1? And you were welcome to make your opinions on that. The final opinion, though, was always Gene Reynolds. Once he said, okay, I've settled it, this is it, that's how you had to do it. It wasn't ad-lib. We did a couple shows that we did ad-lib in, but that once they okayed the script, you had to say it the way they had written it and had okayed it, and if you're going to change it, you had to call the front office and say, can I change this word?
Why would you want to if you had a Gene Reynolds or a Larry Gelbart who was a genius, Oscar-winning, yeah. So you said the commas, you were lucky to have those words. You didn't want to change anything. I mean, one of my favorite Gelbart moments was I had this line that was a winner. You don't do anything to it. You don't put a curve on it. You don't, Larry Linville, Frank Burns, was flapping his gums and being stupid and he looks at me and he says, I was just making conversation. Gelbart gives me this line, try doing it with your mouth shut. You cannot miss when you're given that material. You don't change it, you don't ad-lib, you say it and you win. Woo!
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Todd.
I can't answer that.
I don't know either. We don't know.
How do you feel wearing the dress, Jamie?
When they pay you money, you'll do anything, believe me, in Hollywood. Fortunately, nobody ever asked me to take the dress off. That's what's more important than putting the dress on. Can I tell a real fast story? Am I allowed?
There's always time for a story, Jamie.
The show, my character had not been seen yet in the series, and I was doing like the second or third show, and I had this black outfit on that had a zipper in the back, and you had to go way back there, and do one of those kind of things. And so I hadn't been called to the set for a while, and then after a while, I noticed, hey, gee, everybody's gone home. Nobody's here. They forgot to tell me, that it's the end of the day. So I'm in this dress. How the heck am I going to get out of here? And I saw the men's restroom light on. So I went in there, and there was one of these grip guys, that works as electricians and that. And of course, he'd never seen the show. And here's this guy, hairy legs, with this black dress on. I said, excuse me, sir. I said, could you help me? Could you unzip me in the back? He did. He went out there, and I said to Larry Gelbart, I said, I wonder what that guy thought when he went home to tell his wife. He says, he probably said, I just saw the ugliest woman in my life.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for coming. over the many years that the show was on, you got to work with a lot of amazing guest stars. And do you have any in particular that you remember that you just loved working with?
You know, for me, Leslie Nielsen, who began his comedic career on MASH, that was absolutely genius to have him come in, and he had innately such a wonderful sense of humor, which was never exploited on film. He was always the killer or the gunman or the hitman or the way, and here he is, this wonderful comedic the sense of humor, the comedic attitude, and so I enjoyed that. It was a star born on our show, but we had so many delicious.
Yeah, Gwen Verdon.
Oh my!
Gwen was great on the show. Pat Hingle, Ronnie Howard was on the show. Patrick Swayze was on the show. I mean, you're right. And they were all wonderful. They were just absolutely terrific. And you know what? A lot of the good actors wanted to work for our show. They say, well, I don't want to do television, but a lot of them.
But I'll do a MASH, you know.
It was a very special show.
Actually, the other thing they did was come back when they were through shooting. They'd come back just to hang around because we were so much fun to hang around with. We called this little group of green chairs that we sat on with our names on. That was our green room. But people would come and just sit around with us and have a lot of fun. That's the kind of set it was, though.
Can you people over here on the left, can you see Loretta? Because I'm turning profile and I made it blocked her out. You can see her? Oh, good.
You Arabian aardvark. I love that punim. I love that nose. I love that man.
There's a lot to love there, Phil. I gotta tell you.
Your nose made it there in 5, Jamie. I just wanted to ask, what was it like filming the winter episodes in the heat of summer in California?
Hot. Melting. We would melt. Our makeup would melt. It was tough, but it was also difficult early in the morning if you were there at 5 in the morning at the exterior set. It was cold. I remember during the first season, Wayne was like blue. He had a little drop coming down his nose and it froze. He had this little icicle on his nose. So we were all huddled for warmth. And I had this theory that that's why we were close instantly. We're keeping each other warm and it worked. We were inseparable.
Usually what they did is and it used to frustrate the heck out of me, is that they'd shoot the scenes that were supposedly in the heat. They'd shoot that when it was cold.
Always.
When it was cold, when the opposite of that, they do the other thing. And what I really hated them, do you remember this show that I did when I was Lady Godiva? That was when it was freezing cold out there, you know?
Did anyone forget Lady Godiva? I mean,
I gotta tell you. And then the ones where it was really hot, I had to wear the fur coat, the big coat on there, sweating like crazy.
They could have at least helped you shoot the winter episodes in the winter and then the summer in the summer.
Yeah.
They planned it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is.
Maybe they're making you earn your money a little more.
Do you think?
Maybe. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Cricket, and thank you for being a huge part of my life growing up. I feel so blessed to have known you through television. My question is for Loretta. Did you find that the women's lib movement in the early 70s informed the writers of MASH with the impressive...
Oh, stop. You're kidding, right? The writers? The guys? Unenlightened. You've never... No.
I wanted to ask also, did you have any input in
Lots.
part of that process?
Lots.
Okay.
Because somebody had to do it. They were great. They're great, intelligent, wonderful guys. I mean, I'm not talking about the ensemble so much as writers and the suits in the offices, whether it's CBS or Fox or whatever. just not mean or cruel, just unenlightened. Okay, I'll give you a wonderful example, having nothing to do with the crew and the ensemble.
Are you about to spill the tea, Loretta?
My costumer went to Fox to get a raise. She called me, she said, they may not have me for you this year because I'm giving them problems. I said, what are you doing? She said, well, I went and I asked for a raise. I said, well, a lot? I mean, she said, I wanted to be paid as much as the men's costumers on the lot. I said, this sounds reasonable. What did they say? She said, it's not Fox policy to pay a woman as much as a man. Now, you don't say this to me, okay? You know, can you see me going ballistic? So, we called in labor relations, and this lady, Selah, God, what a woman, went on a one-woman strike. She would not take a no for an answer, and as a result, she got a raise. Now everybody was equal for every woman costumer on the lot. It's a form of education. Now, I know I'm kidding you when I say, excuse me, not hot lips, it's men. But in a small way, I'm not kidding. Because after a while, you had to be aware that she was more than one piece of her anatomy. She was a strong, determined, ambitious, devoted, fragile, a wonderful, wonderful, full-blown woman. You know, it was not fair to call her just one thing, well, bosom or lips or whatever. And we stopped it early on. By the third season, Hot Lips was no longer in the script. It said Margaret, you know, when it, you know, the character's gonna be speaking. It was a process, but I finally, after, to use Mike Farrell's word, he said, I would hear Loretta railing, but I finally convinced them from going out into the world where my fans would say, what are you doing with this guy? You have no respect for him. He's not a good doctor. He's married. There's no future. He's not tall, dark, and handsome. What are you doing? Because they were writing me brighter, and they were writing Larry sillier. So I would go back and say, you know, blah, blah, blah. Finally, it was on hiatus. I was on Broadway doing a show, and the collection of writers and producers called me on the phone, and we had a conversation. They began with, okay, we're listening. What do you see in her future coming up? I said, she goes to Tokyo. She falls in love with a guy who outranks Frank. He's not a doctor. She has a lot of respect for him. He's tall, dark, and handsome, if you can work that in. And she brings him back to the 407 7th, and she's engaged. So they loved it. This is great. You know, we can see Linville tearing off the doors to the mess tent when he finds out. That's great. So we don't lose any comedy. It's amplified by the truth. Okay, so we do that. Jean Reynolds, who was divorced and remarried and happily, said, okay, then what happens? I said, then I get married. He said, oh, gee, I don't know. Sweetheart, that's a little permanent. I said, Jean, you're divorced. What's permanent about this idea? So they all laughed. They went along with it. I said, fine. So I got married. My maid of honor. He wept clear through the ceremony, but it was lovely. My dear Harry Morgan gives me away. I mean, it was perfect. And then with this beautiful thing that Alan wrote for us, Comrades in Arms. And I'm reading him a letter that my husband wrote to another woman and put in the wrong envelope, and I get a letter where he's talking to her about this wonderful weekend they had in Hawaii or something. So not to be cheated on, I'm now out of that. And so we kept on growing. She kept on growing. And the most wonderful thing they allowed me to do was show her vulnerability. Just because she was tough and strong and capable, it didn't mean that she wasn't feminine and vulnerable and fragile. She was a human being. We're at a black tie dinner, and I don't even remember what we were celebrating, and Harry Morgan, my everything. He wore all the hats in my relationship, my father, my confessor, my best friend, my colleague. Anyway, I was lying through my teeth saying it was so wonderful to be treated as an equal. And Harry gets up and says, speaking for myself, I've never treated Loretta as an equal because she is my superior. It got a laugh, it also got a hand, and that means we were making progress. Long-winded answer, but it's an important question.
And I think with the time that we have left, I know we're short on time here for the panel today, and my apologies, of course, but we'll have time for one final question.
Hi, I'm Celeste, and I got a question for Loretta. Which character do you prefer playing most? Major Margaret Houlihan off of MASH, or reporter Polly Brown off of SOB?
Oh, gosh. That the blessing of being an actress is you can stretch and do all of those things. I'm a good mime. I've done mime because I had a great teacher, Angela Lansbury's a dear friend, and I was blessed to be watching her rehearse and perform and all. So when I did mime, Agnes Gooch I did in mime, which I love just as much. But Shirley Valentine, which is probably the best piece of playwriting that's ever been done for a woman. And so I've done those roles that you all don't necessarily know about because they were either in New York Star, but on stage. Television is this wonderful monster that reaches out and you get to see us all, but you don't get to see me do all those other things. I don't know, here's the thing, when you have 11 seasons to work on a character and keep growing and developing, it's hard to beat that. I loved Shirley Valentine because I toured America, I toured Canada, I took her as far as Guam. So by the time I was doing that, I felt the kind of creative energy that I did with Margaret, because when you do a character, it's a real person, and they grow like you do. Every minute, you're different, you're changing every day. If for no other reason, you're faced with different situations and different challenges, and how you handle them is what we see, where your growth, your development. So it's hard because Margaret, parentheses, hot lips, parentheses, Houlihan, was such an interesting, vibrant, wonderful character that I was privileged to have all that time to work on. She has to remain my top favorite. But I loved working with Blake Edwards, so the treasure in doing Polly was working with Blake. So it's a tough question.
Well, thank you for the question. And then Jamie, since I want to make sure we get to hear from you before we go.
What's that?
I want to make sure we get to hear from you before we go. Your favorite moment playing Corporal Klinger?
Oh, getting a paycheck every week. Yeah, well,
I've asked him to tell you my favorite story about
how I got the raise?
Joy and Jamie.
How I got my raise, you mean, in the show?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, you mentioned SOB. That was with William Holden. Well, you know, I became good friends with William Holden because I did the mini-series The Blue Knight with him. And we became good friends. As a matter of fact, when he was shooting the Towering Inferno on Fox, he'd come on our set to visit Loretta and me. And I was having a problem. My agent wasn't one of these gigantic agents, you know, like ICM or William Morrisoff or something. He was just a small-time agent. And he would go in and ask the gentleman, his name was Ron Beckman, he was the hatchet man at 20th Century Fox, and he said, you know, Jamie deserves a raise in salary, you know, I mean, he's getting to be very popular on the show, and I wasn't making that kind of money. And he said, let me tell you something, sir. He says, we have a script in the safe, if you keep asking for a raise, where Klinger steps on a landmine. And he says, we're not going to hire any of your other clients either. So he was out of the picture. So I'm doing the Blue Night with William Holden. William Holden had been under contract to Columbia Pictures when Harry Cohn, who was the boss there, was a real cheap guy also. And Bill was saying, you know, he said, that happened to me when I was a young star at Columbia Pictures. He says, Jamie, it's up to you. You have to be the one that has to get the raise, okay? Because the other one, the poor man, he won't be able to sell any of his clients. He says, as long you do anything you want, do whatever it is, as long as you don't hold a gun to his head. So I said, what a wonderful idea that is. So I went to the prop department at Fox Studios, and I got a gun. His office was right across from stage 9, and his window was, he had a desk facing away from where I was going to approach him.
These true stories all sound like
and I
a
tiptoed,
funny
you know, like in a
bit.
cartoon, behind a tree, behind the thing, the bush and everything else, peeked in the room, saw him, he was all alone in there. I went around the thing, and I kicked his door open, and I said, listen, you, I won't say the letters, but the last one starts with a B. I said, this is the way the deal's gonna go. He goes, you're crazy. I said, write it down, write it down. I got my raise.
Well, we love the stories, we love the show, we love both of you coming here to Salt Lake City. Give it up here for Jamie Farr and Loretta Swit, everybody.